If you got all your news from the mainstream media, you would think that former Premier Rachel Notley took a strong moral stance in the legislature that resulted in her paying a high personal cost yesterday. Today I'll show you why that isn't true and what she did was nothing more than a cynical stunt that played perfectly into the hands of an anti-conservative media.
Mr. Speaker, as I have said before, there are many, many elements of this House that this Speaker has to defend. The integrity and the independence of officers and executive members of this Legislative Assembly, including the Elections Commissioner, who is in the middle of an active investigation, is another thing the Speaker...
Thank you, the honourable member. I never asked you to apologize for having an open conversation, because obviously that would be outside of the purview of the Speaker's role. What I have asked you to do is follow the rules of the Assembly, in which you've chosen not to. And so then, according to Standing Order 24.2, the Speaker may name a member and require them to be removed from the Assembly, at which time, Rachel Notley, you are no longer permitted to be in the Assembly for the rest of the day.
That person there is Alberta's former Premier Rachel Notley being removed from the legislature upon the orders of the Speaker. It happened in a heated debate over Bill 22. Now, that's the bill to end Alberta's recently created Elections Commissioner and roll the job back into the Chief Electoral Officer position, the way we had done things in Alberta for decades before Notley made the changes right in the middle of her previous mandate. The Elections Commissioner has been investigating the Conservative leadership race, but according to the Conservatives, moving the job of the Elections Commissioner back under the mandate of Elections Alberta will not terminate that investigation. However, let me be perfectly clear here. I'm not a disinterested party in this issue. In fact, I couldn't be happier to see the Elections Commissioner, Lorne Gibson, terminated from his job, because I think he's a partisan hack in a bureaucracy created by Notley to attack her political enemies. And he was doing exactly that. Gibson investigated me for over 6 months. Why? Because I wrote a book that was critical of the NDP government called Stop Notley, and because I used lawn signs to promote the book, the way the law said I could. He hired investigators to come after me, and they demanded my emails and internal planning documents and editorial notes about my book, lest I be faced with escalating fines. You can see my communications with the Elections Commissioner's investigators. Listen to the threatening phone calls I recorded between myself and one of the investigators, and read the weird cryptic letter that Lorne Gibson sent my lawyer as a parting shot on the way out the door before he terminated his ongoing investigation against me at SaveSheila.com. Now, that investigation left me with $75,000 in legal fees. So yeah, I think Gibson should be fired. He's out of control, partisan, drunk on power, and has even lamented the fact that he can't enforce the elections laws the way he sees fit, as opposed to how they're actually written. Now, Notley has called the firing of Gibson a threat to our democratic institutions. I didn't hear much about her concern for attacks on democratic institutions when Gibson was investigating an author for writing a book in a free country. And while we're on the subject of attacking democratic institutions, I'm a glass half full kind of girl. At least Notley was removed with the gentle nudging of a very well-known parliamentary rule, as opposed to the sheriff she used to turf me for attending a press conference. And she did this in complete opposition to Canada's long tradition of the free press. Now, enough about me. Notley wasn't removed because she was protesting Bill 22. She was removed because she couldn't follow the rules of the legislature, which was completely purposeful because she's a long-time legislator, first elected 11 years ago, back in 2008. Notley knows you can't go around calling your fellow MLAs liars And MLAs, well, they use creative and thoughtful ways to get around that rule all the time, sometimes using phrases like being creative with the truth. I would say being New Democrat with the truth, but I'm not an MLA, so the rules don't apply to me. Anyway, Notley knew that calling other members of the legislature liars would result in her removal if she didn't apologize for it. And that's exactly what she wanted. Look at this. This is Michelle Bellefontaine. She's the legislature reporter for the CBC, and the timing of her tweets tells the full story of Notley's true intentions in the legislature yesterday. It starts at 1:59 in the afternoon. Notley is in question period. The first tweet. Notley is refusing to apologize for saying UCP House Leader Jason Nixon is misleading the House. Next tweet, just 1 minute later. Speaker Nathan Cooper is threatening to throw her out unless she apologizes. The next tweet is at 2:02 in the afternoon. Notley is going to get named and thrown out. Next tweet, 2:03. Notley is named and thrown out for the day. Then, get this. 13 minutes later, when Notley was supposed to be scheduled to be in question period, had she not been thrown out, or rather gotten herself purposefully thrown out. 2:16, Notley is taping an interview with Power in Politics, which I think was set up prior to what just happened in the House, about her letter to the Lieutenant Governor. We'll talk to her afterward. 2:18, we see a photo of Notley speaking to Vashi Capellos. So let's summarize here. Notley had an interview scheduled for a time when she was supposed to be in the legislature, but then she conveniently gets herself thrown out so that she can go to her national interview, that she then uses to signal boost her stunt in the legislature as some sort of righteous performance, as opposed to an obvious pre-planned tantrum where she broke the rules of the legislature for attention. Talk about unparliamentary. Imagine if Notley had fought for the jobs of the over 100,000 everyday Albertans who lost theirs in the NDP Trudeau downturn, as hard as she is fighting to keep her aggressive, weaponized bureaucratic swamp firmly in place. Notley might not have been reduced back to regional fringe party status with a base in the government enclave of Edmonton. For Rebel News, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. To see the full story of my fight with Alberta's Elections Commissioner Lorne Gibson, and to help cover some of the $75,000 in legal fees that it left me with, go to SaveSheila.com.